just lost in a retarded sea of drug addiction. Just too thin to win.
How did that start?
Huh?
How'd that start?
I'll tell you, but first I gotta share the little Rick tidbit. So I was basically a junkie, but still showing up to work from time to time, which was the basement of the EMI studios on Sunset Boulevard. They gave us a little basement to rehearse in. They had signed us. But we were going nowhere very slowly. Couldn't get out of our own way. But we were still making a buzz. There was still something exciting about us that caught people's attention, and it caught Rick Rubin's attention. And he was with the Beastie Boys, and they were exploding with success and greatness, writing incredible music. And so Rick brought the Beastie Boys to our dingy little recording or rehearsal spot, and he sat there and we rehearsed while they watched. They're in these little dirty couches watching us, and we went through and Rick stood up and said, "We're gonna go now." And I was like, "Okay, do we talk again? What's going on? We'll get back to you." Didn't see him for years. Years and years and years went by. Eventually I got clean and he came back and said, "Let's make a record." But I said, "What happened that day? You came and we played and you disappeared and I never talked to you again." He's like, "I thought somebody was gonna get murdered in that rehearsal space. I thought somebody was gonna die. I had to leave." That's how dark we had become. That's how dark I had become, is he was afraid someone was gonna die and it was time to leave.
Murdered?
That's what he said. He's like, "You guys were terrifying. You were scary. It felt like somebody was gonna die. We had to go."
When you look back on those times, do you understand how he thought that?
Not exactly, but everybody has their own perception, and there was darkness in the room when you're following that lifestyle. There's definitely instead of a magical energy, there's a very discernible dark energy.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize it was that dangerous. He was scared.
How did you get on the road, the drug road?
Well, I think the road was already in me from birth. Combination of predisposed to addiction physically, and then emotionally, I developed the tendencies that I needed to squash some of the noise. Spiritually, a little depleted. So I started smoking weed and loved it. And it was a very fun and at the time subversive thing to be a part of. Like today, it's pretty damn common. But then it was very outlaw as a young teenage boy. And years went by and there was no problem. And then I started introducing narcotics at a pretty young age and really had nothing to say about it anymore. I was like the caboose of a train, just going wherever the hell that train said to go. It was interesting and it was exciting, but it was also painful as hell. It was just like, in the end, this is a life of suffering. Fortunately, my destiny was meant to survive that. And, it isn't really events or advice or anything that gives you the window to step out of that, but it's a little gift from the cosmos that just makes you look at yourself and say, "I'm gonna give you a chance. I'm gonna give you an opportunity to put in the work to get better, if you so choose. If not, carry on."
What was the narcotic of choice?
Of choice, I would have to say the combination of heroin and cocaine was at that moment, at that point in time.
Do you remember what you started with?
Of those two?
Yeah.
I probably did the cocaine shortly before the heroin, but right around the same time, very young age.
And did you do it because it was the thing that people around you did? Was it just exciting? Was it rebellious? Like, what was it? Was it a part of rock and roll?
It had nothing to do with rock and roll or trying to impress or put on a pretense. It was happening around me in my world. It was exciting and dangerous. Everyone's afraid of that. I think I'll do that thing that just the word scares people. But it was also a way of checking out. Like in the same way that, one person will sit down in a bar and have some beers and just not stop.
Yeah.
That allergic reaction to the sensation of finding your medicine.
Right.
I had that reaction. Like I felt whole by putting these things in me until I had to pay the toll. It's like you steal from Peter, you got to pay Paul the next day, and it's a terrible paycheck to write. Terrible paycheck to write.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. It was finding the thing that I thought was going to make me well, but really it was just killing me.
And how long were you on that road for?
Well, I think I was 27 the first time that I was able to put in the work and get sober. And then I went to my young 30s and kind of forgot where I came from and forgot the process of maintaining. It's like you get physically fit, it's not going to be for life. You got to show up.
Yeah.
Or anything else, you know, your craft.
Yeah.
You put it down, it fades. So I had put down the craft of sobriety, and it opened an opportunity. And I ended up going back out there for a bunch of years, like 5 years, which was even worse because now I knew that there was a solution and I was just ignoring it. So there was nothing fun about it. And then the window came back and I had another chance to commit to sobriety, and I did. And that was 21 years ago.
How'd you get sober the first time?
So in a way, my best friend died, which did not instigate sobriety.
Did he die from drugs?
He did, but it definitely destroyed me emotionally, but I continued to use after he died. And then I got to the point where I could not turn off the noise with drugs and alcohol, literally flooding my body with the substance and still wide awake. So I was not getting the desired effect. I was like, this is terrible. Like, I'm putting all this poison in me and I'm still here. And I called up a friend, and rehabs were not a thing at that time. I called up a sober friend and I was like, what are those rehab things? I got to find one. He's like, the only one I know of is very expensive, 10 grand, which in the 80s for a struggling musician was a lot. I was like, I have 10 grand. That's exactly how much money I have. And I spent it. I gave my last 10 grand, my only 10 grand ever, to a rehab, and I went and I checked in, and there was 30 dope fiends in the room of all walks of life, but all with a common sickness. And the counselor said, I'm looking at 30 of you, and that's why one of you is going to get sober out of here. And I was like, get out the way, because I'm taking that spot. I was such a little
competitive.
Yeah, it's an egomaniac. You're just like,
right.
I am taking that.
Right.
Please, you know, the rest of you can go back to where you came from.
Only 1 out of 30.
That's what he said to us. And there was like a guy from the SWAT team. There was professional athlete. There was just every variety of person. And I was like, I'll take it. But then I realized there's a process to it, and there's a being of service aspect to it, and there's a becoming humble aspect to it all. And that was the beginning of me taking many years to go from being a complete idiot to only a partial idiot.